The number one reason that people do not get what they want in life is because they do not ask for it. They wish for it, they wait for it, they hope for it, they pray for it. But you know as well as I do that if you do not ask, you do not get. You do not know, you'll never understand. So if there's something you want in life, we have to find ways of being able to ask for it. From training more than 2 million people around the world, I've learned that the number one reason that people do not ask for the things that they want in life is because they are fearful of rejection. We're so concerned that what might happen is somebody might give us a less than perfect response, that what we fail to even do is to ask in the first place. Because potential and possibility and maybe and might leave us fueled with the hope that we still might be able to receive it. Yet still, I come back to the point that if you do not ask, you do not get. I'll take that one stage higher and have you know that your success is in direct correlation to the quantity of quality asks that you make in life. So in our time here together today, I thought I'd share with you a number of ways that you can ask for things more freely, perhaps even ask in a rejection-free way. So what I'm reaching for here today is some tools from our Exactly What to Say roleplay deck, which is primarily built first for real estate professionals, but actually is relevant to almost everybody on the planet. And within the body of work at Exactly What to Say, we have 4 different ways of asking for things in a rejection-free way. And I figured that if I could share them with you one at a time, you might be able to find some more confidence and competence in making a handful more big asks in your world. The first is to preface a direct ask with the words, "I'm not sure if it's for you." See, if I preface or preface, depending upon what part of the world that you're in, a direct ask with the words, "I'm not sure if it's for you," what happens is something inside the subconscious mind of the other person that you're presenting the idea to. See, if I present the idea to the left or to the right of somebody, it's less challenging. It's less feeling of threat or fear. So when I say I'm not sure if it's for you, then what actually happens is the voice inside the mind of the other person does 2 things. The first thing is it says, I will be the judge of that. It takes full personal responsibility for the fact a decision needs to be made, and that decision is theirs to be made. It is something that is freeing. But the second thing that happens when I position an idea to somebody, the words I'm not sure if it's for you, is curiosity is piqued. They cannot help but wonder what it is. There's like a lean in, and I want to find out more. In this given example though, there's a 3-letter word on the end, a 3-letter word that holds immense power. That 3-letter word, but. Most people think the word but simply negates what was said prior. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of some feedback in an area of your life where somebody's rained some praise on you, and after raining that praise on you, they've followed up with a but, and it doesn't necessarily negate everything that was said prior. What it almost always does by alternative is it simply shifts the focus to next. It has you thinking about the thing they say after the word but. So when you preface an idea to somebody with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, but, what you can do is be remarkably suggestive. You can be pulley and not pushy. In your personal life, that might look like, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I was thinking about the idea that we might go out for dinner tonight. In your professional capacity, that might be, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I've got some ideas that I'd love to be able to share with you that I think could add massive value to blank. And even as a leader, when suggesting ideas to other people in your team, you could say, look, I'm not sure if it's for you, but there's an opening that's coming up in another part of the business that I think you could add tremendous value to. In all of those examples of utilizing the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, but there is no precision in the answer. The answer is still laced in curiosity. The goal of being able to ask in a rejection-free way is to not be so bold in your ask, but ask with a maybe approach, so that what they can do is they can lean in and say, share some more about that. What more do you have in mind? Tell me some more about that. And when they ask for more, most of you are good for there. So the first way of being able to ask in a rejection-free way is with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, but. There's a second way we can increase our odds when it comes to making big asks of people and have them rejection-free, and it's borrowing a piece of basic psychology that if I was to ask a room of 1,000 people who in this room would see themselves as open-minded, I'd get somewhere like 900 hands shoot to the sky. What do I take from that? I take from that, well, firstly, there are some people that just never raise their hands in big rooms full of people. But more importantly, I take from that the whole world likes to see themselves as open-minded. I repeat, they like to see themselves as open-minded. It doesn't mean they are open-minded, it just means that they like to see themselves as open-minded. When we take that fact and we apply it to a conversational principle, that the person who is asking the questions is the one who's in control of the conversation, we just developed another rejection-free opening formula. By being able to ask questions with the preface, how open-minded would you be? Or would you be open-minded to? So I could say, in the same scenario, how open-minded would you be to eating out tonight? Or would you be open-minded for us going out for dinner? What is the difference between a how open-minded question and a would you be open-minded question? Well, one opens a box and the other closes a box. If I said, would you be open-minded to us going out for dinner tonight? That's a yes-no response. And the conversation needs to bounce forward from there. Is how open-minded would you be to going out for dinner tonight? Is that gives space for play for them to be able to put some variables or constraints back into this exact same scenario. So when do you use a how open-minded question versus a would you be open-minded question? Well, you'd use a how open-minded question when you're looking for a discussion. You'd use a would you be open-minded question when you're looking for a decision. So in your business, that could look like, well, how open-minded would you be to finding a little extra money so that you could achieve a significant amount more? We open up a discussion. Or would you be open-minded to being able to raise your available funds for a project of this nature to blank? That's a decision. And what about from a leadership point of view? Well, as a leader, you could ask questions like how open-minded would you be to taking on some more responsibility? Versus, would you be open-minded to making a geographic move to blank? See the difference between those examples? But these are all rejection-free openings because what they allow you to be able to do is to explore a maybe space inside of the mind of other people. It's hard to move a no to a yes, but you can move a no to a maybe, and then a maybe to a yes, and then the same in the other direction. So there are two rejection-free opening formulas. This third one is kind of interesting because what it allows us to be able to do is to play in hypothetical scenarios. Is when you utilize a who do you know preface in a question, you're inviting people to ideate possibilities. So you're asking people to think about the others in their social circle or the others in their business unit that may well have acted in a certain way before to be able to add confirmation bias or some degree of possibility to the outcome that they're looking to try and achieve. It sounds like a lot of words. Why don't we give consideration to it? Well, what about in your personal life is, well, who do you know that's been to XYZ new restaurant? See, whether it's nobody, somebody, or many people, what you've started is a conversation about your desire to want to go and try that new restaurant. Who do you know that's seen ABC show? Well, hang on, I'm starting to be able to get some insight, some context. We're starting a bigger conversation that is a rejection-free opening formula. You might even find that you've got a desire to be able to go visit somewhere you want to travel to. Is who do you know that has traveled to blank? And you start to get further insight. Who else do you know that has talked about potentially traveling to blank? What we're doing with all of these rejection-free opening formulas is we're putting a ball into play to allow us to be able to play the conversation further. Instead of trying to be able to go from A to Z, we're simply going from A to B or A to B to C so that we can have a more enriching conversation about the outcome that we're trying to have. Your ability to be able to start conversations is going to allow you to ask for more of the things that you want in life. So we can also ask who do you know questions inside our business. When somebody says that what I was hoping to achieve is blank, you could say, well, who do you know that successfully achieved that in the last 6 months? Who do you know that successfully achieved that in the current market conditions? Who do you know that thinks that, who do you know that has all that it takes to be able to deliver upon blank? What you're doing is you're progressing the conversation with a soft, challenging ask that garners you more context, that allows you to be more persuasive, more influential, and sometimes even more playful. What about leadership? You could ask questions like, who do you know that's already performing at that level? Who do you know that can help you with this? Who do you know that has some resource that could add some further value to what it is you're trying to achieve? These are rejection-free ways of you asking questions of other people that create new opportunities. And a who do you know preface is also a simple way of you being able to create something out of nothing, i.e. create referrals that didn't exist. See, when I think about my business as a professional speaker, I could ask questions like, who do you know that's looking to hire a speaker? And I'm going to find next to nobody. But what if I was to ask more rejection-free opening questions like, well, who do you know that's involved in the events business? Who do you know that has delivered a number of speeches at a high level that I might not know that I could benefit from knowing? what we're doing is we're creating maybe opportunities, forward motion that's going to allow us to be able to get more opportunities in the future. And I use the real estate example often, given that I'm looking at a real estate deck of cards. There's a big difference between who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, and invest versus who do you know that has talked about potentially needing more space. Who do you know that has given consideration to perhaps a move to the suburbs? You see, when you're more playful in the who do you know ask, you create a grey space that is a safe space because it's a play space, and you start to be able to make bold asks with a lot more freedom. The fourth and final way of being able to start a conversation in a rejection-free fashion is with some structure. Historically, we used to ask for permission to enter into conversations with, have you got a minute, or is now a good time to talk? And there's no longer a need to use these sneak attack methods to be able to get permission to have bigger conversations. When you call somebody on the phone and say, is now a good time to talk? That was a great way to start a phone call when people were answering a phone with a curiosity gap because the phone was plugged into the wall or there was no caller ID. In 2025 and beyond, more often than not, if we don't have time to have a conversation, we don't pick up the phone. If we find ourselves in a work environment where somebody says, got a minute, sometimes you have to say yes when even you may be feeling no. So these old-fashioned ways of being able to try to get permission to have bigger conversations actually end up with us having people saying yes even though they are feeling no. If you want to have permission-based conversations, a structure will help you. The structure we teach here is opening, fact, question. Sounds super simple, opening, fact, question. It's easy in theory, it's challenging in practice. A particular type of opening is what we're looking for, a polite opening. What we're then looking for is a mutually agreeable fact. And after a mutually agreeable fact, you're looking for a easy to answer question. So polite opening, mutually agreeable fact, easy to answer question. That structure will allow you to be able to ask just about anybody, just about anything, and it be completely rejection-free to start the kind of conversation you're looking for. Let's think about 3 examples, and I have Darby here behind the camera right now, and I'm going to ask Darby to give us 3 potential conversations we're looking to start. Let's say one in our personal life. What might that be, Darby?
Could I ask a favor?
So what you might be looking for is some help from a friend or a family member. That's what we're talking about here. Is like, how do I make an ask of a friend or a family member? And what you're going to do is you might put a polite opening out there that could be as simple as like, hey, Oliver, right? That could be the ask. That's the opening. Is that's fairly polite. If you know the person's name is Oliver and you know them well, you could just say, hey, insert first name. We now need a mutually agreeable fact, and we're looking for a favor from them. What might be the mutually agreeable fact is, like, I know that when we were speaking last week, that what you mentioned is that you didn't have any particular plans this coming Saturday. You see how that becomes a mutually agreeable fact if that's based on some historic evidence that you've had in the past? And what might be the easy answer question? The easy to answer question in that scenario, is that still true or has something changed? You see how what we've now done is we've built a frame that is big enough to be able to make your favor-based ask in. It isn't about making the ask, it's about getting in position to make that ask. That's what opening fact question does. So when you say, hey, Oliver, I know last week we spoke and you mentioned that you've got some spare time this coming Saturday. Is that still true or has something changed? And he says, yes, I've still got the spare time. From there, you can now make the ask of your favor because you got into position to be able to do it first. Same could be true if there was a family member in your life that you were looking to be able to get some time with. It could be like, hey, Dad, I know that you're remarkably busy with everything that's going on at work right now. But do you think you might be able to find a moment for us to be able to talk about something important? What are you likely to get? You're likely to get a yes. You've built a frame that gets you into position that gives you permission to make the bigger ask. Polite opening, mutually agreeable fact, easy to answer question. If it's not in your personal life, say it's about trying to reconnect with a past client, what might that look like? Well, say for example, this is somebody you almost did business with in the fall of last year. You might say, hey, it's Phil calling. You might not remember me. What might we then put in as a mutually agreeable fact? We'd build on that and say, back last September, you shared some interest about getting help with X, Y, and Z. And their inside voice says, yeah, that's right. That mutually agreeable fact delivers upon its promise. We now need an easy to answer question. We might say, are you still in the market for blank, or have you found a solution elsewhere? Either of those answers gives me clarity about whether there is opportunity to move on. And what about from a leadership point of view? Let's say that you are looking to be able to drive productivity of somebody inside your team. You might say, hi, Steve. At the start of the year, you gave some goals, some metrics, some productivity targets that you were looking to try and achieve in your year at this point in time. And at this moment, we're tracking slightly behind on those numbers. Do you still believe that you're looking to achieve the goals that you set out at the start of the year, or has something changed? You see how we got the easy to answer question. Everything we've got now in opening fact question is all about putting you into position to gain permission to make the bigger ask. Polite opening, mutually agreeable fact, easy to answer question. Once you're in position, your rejection-free ask becomes a lot easier. So 4 ways to be able to ask for the things that you want in life more freely. One is to be able to position it to the left or to the right of them with a giant curiosity gap with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, but. Second is to insert the words open-minded as a preface to the ask with a how open-minded question or a would you be open-minded question. You're going to use a how open-minded question when you're looking for a discussion. You're going to use a would you be open-minded question when you're looking for a decision. You can also create opportunities by asking in a hypothetical sense with a who do you know preface. And what that does is it removes the resistance because you're positioning it in a hypothetical environment outside of the very person that you're speaking to, knowing that sometimes they may even volunteer themselves. And any conversation you're finding it difficult to start it with an opening fact question. Put yourself into a situation that you've built a frame that puts you in position with permission to be able to make the ask that you were previously finding difficult because you were fearful of rejection. Hoping now that we've removed some layers of rejection, you might be able to ask for more of the things that you want in life. Because you know, as well as I do, that if you do not ask, you do not get. And you also know that your success is in direct correlation to the quantity of quality asks that you make in life. Period.